we're very bullish on the market. So I'm with it. I'm ready to see the economy thrive.
President Trump vowing no exemptions to the 25% steel and aluminum tariff, saying that more could be coming on those metals and on autos. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent joined me yesterday on this program, saying that the tariffs could ultimately stack up.
What's going to happen on April 2nd, each country will receive a number that we believe that represents their tariffs. So for some countries, it could be quite low. For some countries, it could be quite high. So there's not an automatic 25 plus 25 that's going to happen.
Are these stacked tariffs when it comes to aluminum and steel? In other words, if you've got 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel, and then you've got reciprocal tariffs coming, is that going to be stacked on top of the 25% aluminum and steel?
I will have a better sense as we get closer to April 2nd. So they could be stacked, but look, a lot of countries don't produce steel or aluminum. And again, Maria, what I can tell you is going into April 2nd, some of our worst trading partners in terms of the way they treat us have already come to President Trump offering to substantial decreases.
Joining me now is White House National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett. Kevin, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I want to get your take on your priorities, Kevin, but earlier in the week you warned that there could be some uncertainty coming as related to the tariffs that are coming on April 2nd. What are you expecting in terms of this April 2nd reciprocal tariff deadline?
It was actually a little bit, for me, a classic example of mainstream media overreaction to simple statements. What happened was I was on a neighboring show, and I said that in April 2nd, the president's going to announce his tariffs. And between now and then, of course, you'll be uncertain about what's going to happen because he's going to tell you on April 2nd. We're very clear about that. And then there was a headline that all of a sudden White House warns about heightened uncertainty. But it was just a statement that on April 2nd, we're going to reveal everything. And I can tell you that yesterday, Scott Bessent and Secretary Rutnick and I and a few others, we were in Howard's office working on this so that there's going to be a very, very clear, detailed, easy to understand plan for reciprocal tariffs that will be revealed to everybody on April 2nd. The other thing I can say is that what the Secretary of Treasury said is really true, that countries are coming to us and saying, hey, you know, we've been acting pretty rough on you guys, but let's concede this, let's concede that.
Canada's one of them. Canada's like, no, listen, we got to work this out. Because USA, America, can shut half of Canada down quick. We produce a lot of natural gas. Natural gas and resources. Canada was like, we're going to cut off electric. Go ahead, bro. We'll cut you off.
President Trump in the diplomatic room at the White House. We talked DOGE, China, illegal immigration. He even told us and it was a fairly optimistic take. Vladimir Putin agreed to a ceasefire immediately on energy and infrastructure, but not to a 30-day ceasefire. Tell us what happened.
Well, you have a...
Hold on. Catherine says Canada is threatening Corn Hub. I heard about this. So, you know, there's other resources, right?
Situation, we have a lot of guns pointing at each other foolishly because it would have never happened if I were president. That was not a war that was supposed to happen, and it did happen. So that's where we are. And right now, you have a lot of guns pointing at each other, and a ceasefire without going a little bit further would have been tough. Russia has the advantage, as you know. They have encircled about 2,500 soldiers. They are nicely encircled, and that's not good. And we want to get it over with. Look, we're doing this. There are no Americans involved. There could be if you end up in World War III over this, which is so ridiculous. But, you know, strange things happen. And I think we had a great call. It lasted almost 2 hours. Talked about a lot of things and toward getting it to peace. And we talked about other things also.
Was there non-negotiables mentioned by Putin? It was reported that I think the Kremlin media actually stated that he demanded an immediate cessation of aid to Ukraine in order to get to this multi-step deal.
No, he didn't. We didn't talk about aid. Actually, we didn't talk about aid at all. We talked about a lot of things, but aid was never discussed.
In the readout, it also stated that both sides want to get to an improved bilateral relationship, the United States and Russia.
That's true.
How can we trust that Vladimir Putin actually wants that, in that he's not also being influenced at the same time by his close friend, President Xi of China?
Well, look, we have our own discussions with President Xi of China, and he wants to get along also, and he's looking to get along, and we're looking to get along with him, and we will. We have a problem of trade where we have a very big imbalance with China. With Russia, we don't have that much trade, and they'd like to, and we'd like to also. They have some very valuable things for us, including very big forms of rare earth. They have a lot of earth. You know, they have a big chunk of real estate, the biggest, actually the biggest in the world for a country by far. And on that, they have things that we could use, frankly, and that other people could use. I think that President Xi would like to get along, and I think Russia wants to get along with the United States. I also think we're a much different country than we were just a few months ago. We're a country that's now respected. We were not respected. We were being laughed at. We had incompetent leadership. This was a war, as an example, that would have never happened if I were president.
Is part of your desire to forge this new relationship with Russia also impacted by Russia's closer relationship since you left office in 2021 with China? Because I think you talked about before the desire to box out China from that part of the world and have a closer relationship with Russia.
So as a student of history, which I am, and I've watched it all, the first thing you learn is you don't want Russia and China to get together. With that being said, no, it's not a big part of it, but maybe that'll happen or maybe it won't. Obama really forced them together through energy and bad energy policies. And
that's how that's how China's all up in Africa right now.
He did so many different things. He forced a marriage which would never have taken place. It was not a natural. And for one reason, Russia has tremendous land, a lot of land, and China doesn't have enough land. Russia has a much smaller population than China. And it's sort of a natural, it was always a natural enemy situation. They're probably friendly now, but we're going to be friendly with both. I think we're going to be friendly with both. China needs us in terms of trade very badly, but we have to straighten out the deficit. We have now more than $1 trillion deficit with China. It's not even believable. And we're going to be doing something about that. And with Russia, they would like to have some of our economic power.
The criticism that you've heard since really 2015 is that you have more in common with Vladimir Putin than you do with globalist leaders, maybe some NATO leaders, and in this case, with Zelensky. You're both nationalists. Zelensky's more of a globalist. How do you respond to that criticism?
Well, I am a nationalist, but I'm a nationalist for the United States, not for anybody else. And it's interesting because there's nobody been tougher on Russia than me. I'm the one that pointed out Nord Stream 2, and I stopped it. Nord Stream is the biggest pipeline, I guess, in the world, taking care of all of Europe. And it was being built from before I got there. And somehow they were on the way. It was going to be, and I stopped it. It was just stone cold dead. I stopped it in its tracks. That's not somebody that's being particularly, it was the biggest project they ever had. I had it stopped. When Biden got in, he immediately approved it, like immediately. One of the first things he did in office was he approved Nord Stream 2. Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2 until I was president. I said, what are you doing? You mean you're building a pipeline to Germany and various places in Europe. You're paying them billions of dollars a month, and then we're paying a lot of money to fight them. This is not going to work out well. And it stopped, and then Biden approved it, which was a really stupid thing to do, but he did it.
Crazy. I'll place a link for this full interview in the description down below if you guys want to check it out. There was one more thing. The rogue judge. No. Oh, no. Stranded astronauts. Oh, here it is, right here.
We have a lot of lumber. We freed it up, as you know, last week. We're freeing it up so that you can actually cut down a tree without being, given the death penalty. Because what these radical environmentalists have done to our country, but we freed it up. but we don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything. We certainly don't want their automobiles. They make a lot of, millions of automobiles are sent in. I'd rather.
We don't want their corn hub. We don't want their maple syrup. We don't want none of that.